Am I overreacting? My girlfriend stayed in contact with men she's had sex with in the last 2 years. Am I overreacting for feeling unsafe? My girlfriend, 31, of 1 month and 3 days sought to keep in contact with every person she's had sex with within the last 2 years, including past lovers and casual hookups, and it has affected my ability to stay hard and orgasm during our month-long relationship. I, 33 recently made her aware that I don't feel comfortable with her being in active communication with people she's had sex with unless they were long-term platonic friends both before and after having sex and could be respectful toward her new relationship with me. I sympathize greatly with my girlfriend. As a plus-size teen in the early 2000s, when good clothing options for bigger girls were scarce, she was often overlooked and made fun of because of her weight. As she grew older and started developing, she craved any attention that came her way. We were childhood friends who have since reconnected as adults, but even back then, I would tell her straight up that the attention these guys were giving her was not because they cared about her, they just wanted to use her. Her story is the same today. I was first made aware that she is still in contact with a cop with whom she had an intense, though short-lived, sexual dynamic. She said they had penetrative sex only one time and oral sex a couple of times over the years they've known each other, and that the majority of the time they were just friends. Yet she has shared that she loved his dirty talk, that he had the best oral skills, that he was well endowed, which I am too, but apparently he's bigger, and that he was forceful and rough at times, such as when she said she didn't want him to perform oral sex on her and he did it anyway, or when she asked him to go gently from behind and he was rough. Both times, she admitted she climaxed, which she normally doesn't with partners. We later discussed this and acknowledged her CNC kink, but at the time it felt murky and unsafe to me, especially since she had asked him to stop and he didn't. On top of this, they had to sneak around to meet up because his wife, they were in an open marriage, had the cop's location at all times. All of this collectively suggested their dynamic was intense, the sneaking around, the force being used, his power and status as a cop, and his size. They last had sex 2 years ago, yet recently, just before we reconnected, he reached out to her to offer her a rogering, or, as my girlfriend put it, a good fucking, after he learned she had been broken up with by her ex 2 months earlier. The cop would often encourage her to introduce him to her girlfriends to spark a threesome. He was also eager to meet her boyfriends, which we assumed was so he could pressure them with his presence, both as a cop and as someone who had access to her body. During our relationship, the cop texted her Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, all while not being informed that she was in a relationship with me. My girlfriend's own best friend has told her the guy is a creep and that she should stop talking to him. To my partner, though, he's simply a friend. I'm sorry, but a friend would not ask if you need a good fucking when your heart is broken. That's simply not a friendship. My girlfriend explains that he's just an asshole and that's just how their dynamic is, and that I don't understand. The truth is that out of all the past lovers she's kept in contact with, I did not feel safe with her staying in contact with him especially. The predator and power-abusing vibes were too strong for me to feel safe intimately, knowing she was still in contact with someone who had access to her like that. Things came to a head late one night while we were lying in bed. We were getting ready to sleep when she got a call from one of her exes, a different person whom, for privacy reasons, we'll call Brian. It was about 11 p.m. She answered without hesitation and had a 20-second back and forth with her calling Brian an asshole and him playing along with the bit. She later explained she answered because she wanted to show me that there was nothing between them. I lay there half naked, feeling momentarily sidelined, and realized this was too much for me. I already knew there was nothing between them, that wasn't my concern. What concerned me was her answering a call from an ex at 11 p.m. while we were half naked in bed, a call that wasn't an emergency, but just because Brian was bored and wanted someone to talk to. I left her house that same night and realized I needed to establish boundaries if we had any hope of working. My boundaries were as follows: neither of us would remain in contact with people we've had sex with unless they were long-term platonic friends before and after having sex. As for people we'd been in committed relationships with, there would be no contact at all unless there had been a clear, consistent support system rooted in real care and attention throughout that relationship. I gave her 2 days to decide whether she could honor those boundaries, and I was ready to walk if she couldn't. I made that very clear to her. She was free to do whatever she wanted, but I would refuse to abandon myself and stay with someone who left warm lines open to people who had been inside her, especially when those relationships weren't based on actual care and friendship. She chose to honor my boundaries and cut off the cop, letting him know she was seeing someone and wanted to respect my boundaries. She said she would wait for Brian to message her and tell him as well. Things seemed good, though I was still having issues staying hard during sex. I took it as my body still learning that it was safe to be with her. Fast forward to the next week, I saw her texting for several minutes with a concerned look on her face. I asked what was going on, and she explained she was talking to David, a person she had slept with just 6 weeks earlier, only 2 weeks before sleeping with me. She explained that David was suicidal, had no one else to talk to, and was only a friend. David had been an acquaintance for most of the 2 years they had known each other. It was only recently, 2 months prior, that they started connecting as friends. The bulk of their connection was through shared trauma and grief, my girlfriend's recent breakup with both her ex and her friends who ghosted her, and David's painful history and suicidal tendencies. I learned that this is called trauma bonding, and that true friendship cannot arise while that type of bonding is active. I immediately let her know that I didn't feel comfortable with her talking to someone she had just slept with, and that I wanted time to think about whether something like that would disrupt the intimacy of our relationship. The next time we spoke, she said, word for word, that she could not honor my boundaries anymore. She feared I would continuously change my boundaries to gain control over what I wanted, and that she needed to stand up for herself. She took my desire to protect the intimacy of our relationship, and to protect her from emotionally draining tethers, as a form of control and manipulation. She claimed our issues in bed were really just my issues, stemming from insecurity. She wanted me to trust her judgment of the people she called friends, even though she often minimized her relationships with these people and gave nearly anyone who provided consistent attention the blanket term friend, regardless of sexual history. We separated for 24 hours, saying the relationship was over, and during that time she reached out to the ex who had broken up with her and ghosted her 2 months earlier. I've since ended the relationship and am considering ending our friendship as well. My truths, who I saw as unsafe for our intimacy and for her personal growth, were received like knives being thrown at her. It became a constant struggle between her feeling the need to defend herself and me trying to articulate why these people she'd had sex with were not healthy to keep in our lives and were negatively impacting our intimacy. She believes a 50-50 partnership would mean me trusting her judgment half the time when she says someone is good, and her trusting my judgment the other half. I saw it differently, that we should both be equally discerning about who is safe and who is not safe for our relationship. That is a 50-50 partnership to me. Since she often gave the blanket term friend to anyone who showed her consistent attention, I felt I was the only one actively discerning. I never thought she would outright lie to me, but I did not trust her ability to be fully honest with herself about what these relationships were. In the end, we both acknowledged her fear of losing people. We acknowledged the trauma she faced being ghosted by both her ex and her friends at the same time, and how that made her doubly reluctant to let go of the people she'd had sex with. She didn't want to lose anyone else and expressed fear of being alone if she cut them off and our relationship ended anyway. I understand her point of view. I really do. But my body and self-respect simply will not allow me to stay in a relationship where those tethers are still active. That's my story. I'm open to any questions or comments. Please be honest and clear about what you mean.